Welcome to the American Institute of Architects Kansas City Chapter's Legends and Leaders program. This series highlights AIA architects and others that have helped shape our community, lead the AIA, and mentor a new generation of designers. Vernon Reed has led an accomplished career involving practice and service to the AIA. As a student at the University of Arkansas, he had the privilege of studying under E. Fay Jones and Edward Durrell Stone. Beginning his career in Kansas City with Emile Barrell, then on to Kivett & Myers before starting his own firm. Vernon has been very active in the AIA both nationally and locally. At the national level, he served as member of the AIA Board of Directors, representing the Central States region. With an interest in legal and liability issues, he led the AIA to take action regarding copyright protection of drawings and to the publication of a newsletter on liability issues. Vernon was also instrumental in establishing Teach the Teachers program, which became CUBE, led by Dean and Jenny Graves. Vernon was elevated to the College of Fellows in 1989. At the local level, Vernon spearheaded the establishment of the KCPT Skylines TV series, which encompassed over 90 interviews with local AIA and other leaders during its run in the 1980s. All of these interviews are digitized and available through the chapter office. Mr. Reed recruited Linda Young to be the chapter chief executive and was a leader in encouraging local members to see fellowship in the AIA. While maintaining a successful architectural practice and supporting the AIA, Vernon found time to become an expert vintner, growing his own grapes and creating award-winning wines. Let's meet Vernon.
Good afternoon, Vernon Reed. Thank you for joining us for this AIA Architectural Legacy program.
It's my privilege to be here, Roger.
All right. So we're going to kind of run through aspects of your career and just talk about what you've been doing and try to summarize part of your involvement with the AIA and as we progress. So let's just kind of begin with what originally got you interested in architecture.
Well, actually, when I was 6 years old, I saw my mother scratching out some drawings, and I had no idea what she was doing. And then she told me that this was a plan of a house that we were living in. And she showed me that the two lines was a wall, no line was a door, and then there was an indication that one line was a window. And so as she laid that out to me, it suddenly made sense to me. And she said it was architects who designed buildings. And I told her, well, then I'm going to be an architect. And I was 6 years old then, and I had no idea what an architect was. But if an architect designed houses, then that's what I wanted to do.
So John Williams was certainly one of your early influences then. And at the University of Arkansas, you had the privilege, you might say, of having Fay Jones as an instructor.
Yes, absolutely. Fay was the most wonderful thing that could happen to anybody because he truly was a designer. The superintendent did adequate design work. As a matter of fact, I saw some of the houses he designed while we were in school, and we went out to visit them, and they were really very outstanding. Mm-hmm. Not quite the quality of Fay's work, but next to it. Okay. He was a superb designer.
And also then in one of your classes, you and actually when you got to the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, your residence was designed by Edward Durrell Stone, and he was then one of your teachers for a part of a semester.
That's right. I had the great good fortune of spending 4 years of my life at the Sigma Nu House, designed by Edward Durrell Stone. And so that made an impression on me. And where I went to school, the Fine Arts Center, the entire Fine Arts Center was also designed by Edward Stone.
After graduation from the University of Arkansas, Uncle Sam helped you go through college, and you then went to Vandenberg Air Force Base.
And going into the Air Force was really a wonderful experience. It was a fun event. I was immediately put in charge of the Cape Heart Range construction project that were already under construction at that time. Duke Wright, who was then a first lieutenant when I came in as a second lieutenant.
Okay, so from your Air Force career, you went to work for Emil Barrel briefly, and that was you only worked for him for a year. You'd applied for Kevin Myers.
Yes, and they were bid out there.
So from there, you then, as soon as the opportunity presented itself, you went to apply again at Kevin Myers.
Kevin Myers, and at that time, they welcomed me. He welcomed me with open arms. My first project was the the drugstore in St. Joseph.
For cats.
For cats, yeah, Cat's drugstore.
So, but after 2 years with them, you then had what you needed in order to get your licensing exam. And
Yes, that's right.
So you went to Liberty and hung out a shingle, working on a number of projects there. You worked with several clients that were repeat clients. And you and Homer Williams, you met through the AIA. You
Yes.
and Homer partnered for a time, and there you met Linda Young.
You saw in Linda something that you recognized as a leadership potential, and you wanted her and encouraged her to run for the AIA.
She was a very, very competent person. You didn't have to tell her how. You just had to tell her what you wanted, and she would figure out how to do it. She was very creative secretary, and just did a very good job of managing our business.
And then the AIA's business when she became.
That's right. She took the position of executive director for the AIA.
Mm-hmm.
And then she took a similar position nationally.
Mm-hmm. But before that, you and her worked on the Skylines program and this is a kind of an offshoot of some of the work that you were involved with at the AIA.
That's right. Yeah.
And you did the Skylines program, which is basically doing what we were doing right now, is interviewing architects and
exactly.
and getting an understanding of their practice.
Right.
During your entire career, the AIA played a big role in not just your practice, but in your life. You were actively involved with the Mid-States Regional Council. You wrote the copyright law that protects architectural drawings.
That's right. Congress passed the bill that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my thesis was that after all, architects are inventive, just like any inventor creating an engine or a turbine or whatever. Architects are doing that in the buildings they create. And it is an inventive process.
And you wanted to recognize that and then protect them for
That's
their
right.
efforts.
Therefore, their inventions should be copyrighted.
So part of that copyright law, I think, as I recall or understand it, protects their drawings so that if someone hires them to design a building, they can't reuse those drawings multiple times to build duplicates over and over.
That's right.
So you were protecting their efforts.
That was the intention, of course.
Okay. And then you were involved in many other aspects of the AIA. So on the national board, though, you recognize that being a board director, you could nominate members for the gold medal.
That's right. When I first got on the board, I was there while they voted on the previous gold medalists, and that when I saw that, I realized that I had a lot of power in my hand going on the board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And so even before I got on the board for my first meeting, I told Fay that I wanted to nominate him for the gold medal. And he said, "Oh, Vernon, I appreciate that, but that is just not going to happen." Mm-hmm. These people design high-rise buildings. They design big buildings. I only do residences. And I said, "Fay, I know, but I'm going to nominate you for the gold medal." And he said, "No way, Jose," but he did cooperate in giving me the photographs. And
he did go on to get the gold medal. And then you also nominated Thomas Jefferson, who surprisingly had never had a gold medal.
Well, yes. There was a habit of nominating, post people who were architects in the past. Richard Morris Hunt was one, and Frank Furness and so forth. But yeah, that was a great privilege to be able to focus on Thomas Jefferson. Few people at the time knew that Jefferson was an architect, and he was self-taught. The amazing thing is that he could see buildings and figure out how to build them.
You were also involved in when Kansas City hosted the national convention. There's an element called Teach the Teachers that was introduced.
Right, and Jenny, just a precious person, because she is quite savvy. She was not an architect like her husband, but she understood architecture, so she was just an absolute delight to work with.
Was she a teacher? And that was her interest in trying to...
She taught elementary school.
So you worked with her to develop that program, Teach the Teacher.
Yeah.
So you were actively involved in the AIA, and you were actively involved in the development of your firms that you worked in. But you also then wanted to help develop leadership capabilities in new members, and so you wrote a book about presiding and leading, how to be
presiding and leading.
It occurred to me all the way through my architectural profession that architects were great architects, but they were never really schooled in leading a corporation or a business. That wasn't taught in school. That's just something that they had to learn the hard way. And so that was the reason for my book, was to systemize how leadership leads into being an executive, how to develop a system for getting things done.
Maybe one of the highlights of your career was being nominated to become a part of the College of Fellows. And so tell us about becoming a fellow and what that meant, and then what that led to.
Well, that was a great honor for me, but I sense that there's a responsibility of leadership. The leadership should help others to become leaders as well. And so I felt an obligation to try to systemize what leadership involves in architecture, and which led to me serving on various committees and develop a broader view of the profession by having a position in different aspects of leadership. So I tried to equate that to debate, whereby you learn systematically how to become a debater. Well, you can systematically learn how to become presiding over committees or groups, businesses, and so forth.
Well, I'd like to continue that train of thought about of developing relationships with young architects and mentoring. So what advice would you give to a young architect starting out in the profession?
Get involved in the community, become a member of civic organizations. That way you're led to other people in other professions, and you can kind of unite your efforts with theirs to make improvements on a broader basis. You can do a lot by yourself, but you can do a lot more doing work with other people. So the name of the game, as far as I'm concerned, is to become acquainted with others and work together with others. It's working together with others that get things done. I had the great good fortune of meeting a lot of people who are just wonderful people in the profession.
Well, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. It's been a great pleasure to be able to kind of ask you these questions.
The pleasure was all mine.
Yeah, well, I knew you'd say that, of course. But getting your answers and learning a little bit about your career path and your involvement in the AIA. So I thank you for doing that.